This is Lake Valley, a city I left abandoned for 2,706 days before announcing planners and proceeding to change 75% of the city. But even though we've improved the city by quite a bit, our changes have left little under 15,000 people homeless, and they're clamoring to get back in. Okay, maybe not. But we're gonna make this city so great that they can't help but want to come back. So in today's episode, we're gonna focus on our last goal, reaching a population of at least 112,000 to match our population. And to do this, we're gonna increase density near high capacity transit, ensure that our city services are up to snuff, be incredibly attentive to our RCI meter, and most important, we'll be patient. And while we're being patient, we're gonna make a couple of improvements to the city, such as fixing the lumpies and bumpies on the highway, rebuilding this interchange, figuring out a way to make this beach a little less crazy, and finishing off the river with some key walls. And at the end, we'll have a huge city tour to see Lake Valley off-right, comparing where we started to where we are now. You'll be able to download the save for this city on the Steam Workshop, so if you want to check it out or continue making improvements, you'll be able to do so. And if you've enjoyed this Abandoned City series and want me to take on another old city, hit the like button. And if you prefer I stick to my other series, hit the like button for that too and let me know what you prefer in the comments. Or drop me an emoji that lets me know how you're feeling today for the sake of engagement. And because I'd like to know how you're doing. Let me know how you're doing today. Without any further ado, let's jump right in. Let's begin by taking a look at some fixes I made off camera. And we'll begin right here at this new water treatment facility. The reason why I had to build this is I wanted to remove a cheat asset that I used to use all the time, this water purifier. So what the water purifier does is it acts as both an inlet and a cleaning solution. Absolutely great if you don't want to deal with water, which back in the day, I didn't do a very good job with it. The water pipes did not go under the road where they belong. And as a result, I've done this. I've gone through, I took the Move It tool and I highlighted every single water pipe in the city and deleted them. And I placed all the water pipes underneath the road right where they belong because this drove me crazy. And the final thing that I did is very visible right here. The river is significantly higher than it used to be. And this is going to be a really important thing for later on in the episode because one of the most common comments that I've seen is that the river needs key walls. But I was always reluctant to do so because the water level was so low and having key walls looked very strange as a result. In fact, this is the way the water looked at the start of the series, and you can just see it's pretty bad. So now that we've risen up the water levels, I think we're going to be able to add key walls. And here's how I did that. Using the extra landscaping tools inside the water menu, I went and I added a variety of sources through here because before there was only one water source, one over here. And truthfully, I get it. It makes perfect sense to believe that your river can have only one water source, but the net result of that is a river that sometimes runs out of water and oftentimes is just way lower than you expect it to be. So if you're going to build a river, you've got to add lots of water sources. Did the exact same thing over here, and everything looks a ton better in my opinion. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's start building our transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented development, or TOD, is the creation of dense, walkable, mixed-use neighborhoods near high-capacity and high-frequency transit, such as near train, metro, or bus rapid transit stations. And it generally requires supportive zoning policies that allow increases in density and streamlined approvals near those stations. Thankfully, this is City Skylines, so we don't have to worry about the approvals process, but we do need to adjust the zoning near our new transit lines. One of those is right here. We installed this BRT line, which comes across this district right here and then comes across here as well. And right now, what we're looking at is a whole bunch of single family homes with high quality transit. That is not okay. The city would look to recoup its investment, and the way that it could do that is by increasing the allowable density here and making it easy for that density to occur. I'm going to start over here, and what I'm thinking is that maybe we'll have some mid-rise buildings that came with the new Brooklyn and Queens Content Creator Pack, which is going to mean that we need to create a district. But before we do that, I want to look and see where the single family homes are. And you can see that we've got a little row of them right all the way through here, coming all the way back to here and then wrapping around. Now, generally, if you're going to have a transit-oriented development, you want to spread the benefit as much as you can. And generally, folks are said to be willing to walk about a half mile or 0.8 kilometers to a high quality, frequent transit station, one that they don't have to think about whether it's going to be there or not. They just show up. And I believe that what we're looking at is something like 4 blocks. We're not going to do that. That seems a bit extreme to me. So what I do think we are going to do is maybe cut that in half, and we'll go 2 or 3 blocks in either direction. And I don't remember exactly what is in this larger district, so I'm just going to carve a hole in it, and we'll do a little bit of Swiss cheese development. And the whole reason we did that is so that I could set some district styles here. So the default style is going to be the Brooklyn and Queens style, but I think that we are going to have maybe a row of offices. And because of that, I will apply a policy there as well. The wall-to-wall office building style right here. The reason I want that one is they will again be kind of those mid-rise buildings, and that'll just come down here, 4 units, blast these all away, switch these over to offices. This is also going to help us out because office and industry is our #1 need in the city right now, so we might as well resolve that when we can. So I do want to do a bit over here, but we got to look at our terrain because we didn't respect our topography. So let's improve a couple of things over here. And of course, we're going to do that with our set slope mode in our network multi-tool. And we've got a 24.7% grade over here. So I'm going to slope all the way back and get this to a 3.8. I think that this is probably, yeah, that's also extreme. So we'll get rid of that. Not the greatest look as we decimate our population before we begin building it up. But I do think when we have the opportunity to improve things, we should probably take it. The one strange, unfortunate consequence of this is that many of these buildings are going to be at the wrong height now. I could go through and try to fix all of these individually, but reasonably, the easiest way to resolve this is going to be just to pause this for a moment and get rid of all the buildings. And one of the main reasons I wanted to clear this all out is that just because I move the roads doesn't mean that the terrain against the roads is necessarily in the right location. I think this is really illustrative of that. Look at this. We've got this lumpy right here, this little hill. So I'm going to grab the slope terrain, the soften terrain tool, get a fairly big brush and a fairly low strength, and just kind of walk on through here. Now here's where I'm going to do something that is not necessarily the height of realism. I think that we are going to give ourselves a little bit larger of a building pad over here. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to grab this height here, grab this height here, spread it out. And then I'm going to use my slope mode, right mouse click at the top height, left at the bottom, and give ourselves a pad. And now I'm right mouse clicking at the height on the road and pulling it back so it is perfect. There we go. I think that that is an improvement. So we're going to roll with it. Now I am a bit concerned. I wanted to add some zoning, but we're not seeing it all the way along here. Easy fix. We just need to upgrade these roads with anarchy on. Then our zoning grid repairs itself. And this one, we're going to do something very similar. I want to mimic that architectural style, but we already have 2 different districts here. So what I think we're going to do is just change this larger district. These are all single family, low density buildings anyway. And then we'll use this Dean Square district as the launching pad for, again, our Brooklyn and Queens buildings. And then we'll go into districts and areas and once again apply the wall-to-wall office specialization. So we are going to remove basically all of the single family homes through here. We are going to stick with the lower density commercial buildings. Look at this. We've got this high school at the lowest level in this, what is essentially a valley. So we've got to adjust the terrain heights here. It'll make all of our buildings look better too. Now, before we move on actually zoning through here, I want to improve the transportation network. I know that we've got this high quality BRT going right through it, but why don't we add in some excellent bike connections as well so that we have first and last mile connections all the way through the neighborhood. And I see an opportunity. What we're going to do is turn off all of our snap twos, and along the back of this, I want to run a bicycle facility. Here's not the height of realism, but we are going to just plow through these buildings for a bike path. Now that our bike path is done, we're going to come through and add crossings. And I don't want to have a bunch of node errors. So what we're going to do is go into move it, grab this, hold down Alt. So I'm grabbing the crossing, hold down Alt, and then just sliding it into place. So I'm going to do this up and down this facility. Now here's a slightly more interesting spot. I don't want the bikers to have to cross at the train track. So I'm actually relocating this down and flaring this out a bit. Now I want to mix some uses through here. So along the BRT corridor, I want to have additional commercial, and then we're also going to add some offices. And then the other thing that might be kind of fun in this area, besides fixing this, that's pretty wacky right now, we are going to add in some of our new leisure and tourism buildings. We've got, for instance, this new pond. I think that this is too large. All of them are too large to fit in here without removing some roads, so we're not going to do that. But what I do think we are going to do is add in some of these new sidewalk restaurants. That to me seems like the absolute perfect amenity to have in an area like this. Folks could leave their office, grab a bite to eat. There's some coffee shops. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Let's just get this place zoned in. And then this is going to be a little bit more off the beaten path, but I was noticing that we've got this gigantic area of forest that is undeveloped, and I just don't think that that is very reasonable, especially when you look at it. There's basically no terrain, excellent access to a bunch of amenities, excellent city service coverage, yet here we are with just a forest there. This would either become a proper park, most likely, or a protected green space that is prominently known. Maybe there'd be some trails. But we're not going to do any of that. We're trying to add population. So what I think we're going to do is just run a couple of roads back here. And for this particular area, if you're wondering why it was undeveloped, this is where we had all of our water purifiers. So all of those purifiers were right back here, bunch of crazy water infrastructure, and we got rid of all of it. Now we can add our water pipes underneath the road right where they belong. Back here, we are not going to get cute with it. Even though we don't have a lot of demand for this, we are not going to have anything besides residential back here. And actually, maybe along this collector, we will add some commercial and soak up some of that demand. And there we go. And this whole area has high quality transit, so this isn't necessarily TOD, but it is important nonetheless. So I've already gone through to take a look at where we have metro stations that could stand to have some density around it. And basically when we look here, it's only this one spot right here. There's a bunch of single family homes and low density commercial around here in what otherwise would be a very valuable area. So I think we're going to go a bit more intense. So we'll go 3 blocks up from our station, 3 blocks over from our station, at least for our residential. We'll take all of that out. And then this whole bit along the side of the hill, we'll redo that as well. And this is really challenging terrain. I mean, just reasonably, I probably should have never built here, but shoulda, coulda, woulda, did. Now we're going to deal. So the way that we're going to resolve my issues with this is basically to ignore it. Again, we're going to add a district. And this one I think is going to be a pure wall-to-wall district. They're just the perfect size. Holy cow. We've got some terrain challenges over here. And I will try my best to stop. I want nothing more than to fix, like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to fail you guys a bit right now and let my craziness get the best of me and fix a whole bunch over here. I think in my perfect world, I would level all of this and start fresh or just get rid of it, but that's not where we're at. Through this area, again, I think we're going to add a couple of offices. We might even have an office street. So the street that has the transit facility, we're just going to add offices up and down it. And now for the rest of this, we're going to come through and kind of universally add in a bunch of high density residential. And again, because we've applied our wall-to-wall theme, these buildings will look better on terrain and they won't be quite so tall. And then finally, we're going to add in a bunch of office space right along the side here. Perfect. So I think we need to let this sit for a few minutes and then we'll take a look at our city services. So I've let things run for a number of minutes and we are in a pretty good spot with our population, almost where we were in the beginning. But I think this building is illustrative of some of the problems that we're currently facing. We have some city service issues, and these issues are preventing us from reaching our maximum potential in terms of density and growth. What I want to do is go through a number of city services kind of in rapid fire and make sure that our coverage is good and that we are covered everywhere. So let's begin with our trash collection, which I know is an issue. And there are a couple of things that I think we can do to fix this. First of all, our processing is our big issue, our big limitation. We just don't have enough of it. So we'll look at our gigantic processing site over here and add to it. Now I want to continue building along this key, so I'm going to have angle on only and then pay attention to this little percentage, which is really challenging to see, but I want it to be 90, not 91, and control H this down so that it's completely flat, and then we'll clone this. That's basically it. This could likely resolve most of our trash issues, but I do think while we're thinking about it, we could do a little bit better, and we're going to. So I want to take a look over here. There was a recycling center, I believe right about here, and I removed that. And what it's done is make this place really difficult to serve with trash collection. We're going to add some trash collection in this general area, and I'm thinking we're going to tuck that away, maybe back here. But we're going to use a waste transfer facility. And the primary reason for that is it doesn't generate much noise or pollution. So this should work out really well for us. The challenge is, and this is super ugly, I don't think anyone would want to see this, but here's the thing. Sometimes you have things that you don't love, and they're right in the middle of a place that you do. I'll back this up, and then we'll plant some of these boreal pine trees. And I don't use these very often, so what I think we'll do is shrink it down. So the way that I'm doing that is in Bob, I'm going to the extra functions, and I'm going to set the minimum scale way down and the maximum scale way down as well. So now I can change the scale, and you can see these shrinking up as I change it. And I'm going to set that to 0.5, which to me feels a lot like an arborvitae. And now I could even line tool these into place. They'll always be this size. We'll set the spacing to be something like 2 meters. And we'll tuck this place away. That's the thing. You have to have services. So you do what you can to hide it. That is going to be good enough for this area. And my hope is that this serves the downtown area as well. We're having some problems at the terrace, so I believe this should be able to serve that area. And then the other place I want to spend a bit of time focusing on too is one right here and one right here. And I think it would make some sense to potentially just add in a new waste processing complex out here. So I'll turn all the snap tubes back on, come about 30 meters out to get this away from everybody, and then we'll stick it in the middle of the forest. And apparently I'm using the wrong road. So we'll get that upgraded. And then we'll just move this recycling center, add a waste processing complex, and then a waste transfer facility or two as well. And then we'll get our water pipes under here, and this should start working fairly quickly. And I love this because this was basically the worst spot for a recycling center. It was right in front of the high school, and there was a gigantic retaining wall in front of it. So we've made the students very happy. Now they're just looking at, it'll probably be a commercial building right in front of the high school. Not a big deal. Totally crazy slopes, but not a big deal. And this is really going to help us out. Now, the other place I want to look is right over here. And I'm just going to be upfront with you and say that I hate this little neighborhood. I can't just leave this. I think that we're going to fix a couple of things, and I want to rethink this. I don't know if this makes the most sense to have over here, or if perhaps we just add a waste transfer facility instead, maybe even 2. Let's get rid of that. We're fine on processing capacity. And then I'm just going to get rid of some of these roads that are a little crazy. This is going to make me so happy. Oh, you ever just do something that you just feel instant relief? That is the slope terrain tool to me. I'm really hoping this mod, if this feature isn't in City Skylines 2, which I assume it won't be, I really hope that this mod comes out quickly because I'm going to miss it. So I basically had to get rid of every single building except for this guy apparently. And now we're just going to slope things out through here. Then before things regrow in this area, I think I'm going to take away most of the residential through here. Just not really a great location for it. So we've added so much residential, I think we can get rid of this. And this can be some sort of commercial district that is off the beaten path. And after taking out an absolutely ridiculous number of buildings, I think that we're finally ready to do what we were going to do over here, which is simply add a couple of waste transfer facilities. I'm losing my focus. That's a problem. So for these, I'm just going to tuck these away back here. Now they have excellent access to this road. Should really be helpful in this area. And we can just uniformly zone this for commercial. Now, my guess is with the high demand that we have for commercial, we've actually just helped our residential zones by adding this new commercial area anyway. From there, let's take a look at our police coverage. And I know that there are some significant deficiencies in a couple of areas, the airport being one of those areas. We have these new high capacity police headquarters with a small footprint. Knowing that we have, it's a moderate crime rate, but definite hotspots, I'm going to add a significant police presence near the airport, kind of a place you'd expect to see it anyway. Our little industrial district and commercial district over here is an absolute disaster when it comes to police coverage, so we will add that back here. This is a local road here, so we can add this here and it'll have access to the collector. Everyone loves that. The reason why we're doing any of this is this will level up our buildings and our density as a result will also improve. Next, we'll take a look at our fire coverage, my notorious blind spot, and see if there are any places right down here we've got issues. So again, we'll add some fire coverage. And this is a very dense area, so I am contemplating just going ahead and adding one of our fire stations down here to cover this general area. Sneaking suspicion, the next thing that we see is a bunch of leveling up around here. Yep, there we go. It begins. Down here, wow, I can't believe it's so bad. We apparently missed fire coverage in the downtown area. Can you believe it? Can you believe that I would have done that? Let's add that. I'll add it near the university. And now they should have pretty adequate access to everywhere, except for maybe down here. Reasonably, I think that this in reality would be fine enough. Maybe not, it's hard to say. We're gonna add coverage anyway. And this will at least help us level up all these buildings at a minimum. And you see it happening here as well. And then interestingly, I think we've got 2, maybe 3 more blind spots. One is in that Highland Park area we just created. The other is near our new garbage complex. And then over here is another one, part of our little factory complex. And then up here, this is at the top of a hill. There's not much we can do there. So we're gonna add in a larger firehouse down here. And this will blend in well with our wall-to-wall buildings. So I love that aspect of it. Look absolutely crazy on the cliff, but it'll be fine. And this says it's not great, but I think it's really just the location of this facility that's not ideal. So we're just gonna pull this to be a bit closer. And that'll extend the coverage down here. And then the very last firehouse, we're gonna place that right over in our warehouse district. It's funny, it doesn't seem like it should be that bad, but apparently it is. So we'll just add one more. Ultimately, with city services, I've generally noticed that as you place them, the land values increase. So it ends up being kind of a wash in terms of cost. If you have the upfront money, you might as well place them. And we have increased already our weekly growth to almost 300 people move into our community per week. Excellent. Now we'll move on to healthcare and death care. And this is probably the more significant issue in some of our areas. For instance, we basically avoided it in this whole area, basically thinking that you don't need to have it near a place of employment. That's kind of an error in thought. It actually helps you increase your density. So again, we'll add that there. And I want to say that there's maybe 1 or 2 other blind spots, but the big one is in the downtown area. So we are going to add a hospital down here, and that should resolve some of our issues. We've got a big problem right here with the commercial buildings noise polluting our residential. So I'm going to add this maybe over here. Let's look at our terrain first. It's definitely a challenging location, but we'll figure it out. Yeah, not ideal because of the slope, but I think that it's going to be fine. We'll kind of deal with it. The way that I'll do that is I'll just raise this up and let the slope occur elsewhere. And then to resolve this noise pollution, we will convert this block right here that's causing all of our issues. We'll convert that to be office. And I've been seeing a number of happiness arrows from the buildings as we place that hospital. I believe that our coverage down here should be outstanding at this point. Average health was 77, and I think the main reason it's so low is this entire area right here. So that should help us out quite a lot. And it's been fascinating watching this entire area level up. We've got one more issue, and that is our death care. We are seeing our number of sick citizens decline a bit. So for death care, we've got 300 dead citizens getting picked up. And I think the way that we resolve this, again, is just spamming some of our cryopreservatories. I hate doing that, but I also feel like we kind of have to. So we have no death care in the downtown area. And the reason why it's so important to disperse these is without a mod like Transfer Manager, for instance, you end up with hearses from across the city picking up bodies over here. And that ultimately makes it more difficult to pick it up in their local area, and it starts to compound, and you can have a major death wave. It stinks that we have to look at it this way. We don't even really understand, or at least I don't understand, how capacity relates to deceased. I believe that capacity, we're getting kind of dark about it, is actually the amount of freezer space in your crematoriums to hold bodies, not actually the number of bodies that you can burn in a week. But if we did have any blind spot, again, it is our industrial districts. So I'll just add in one over here and then maybe even one over here. And the purpose of this one is really to serve these industrial areas in the far-flung parts of the community. So feeling much better about that. We're starting to slow down, 200 addition per week, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're almost there. So I think that right now what we need to do is build a small industrial park. You might recall that this little island right here used to be a zoned industrial park, and I'm basically reintroducing zoned industrial to the build. It'll help us kind of supply the jobs necessary to actually have the growth that we're looking for. So I don't love this. I'm hoping that we can keep the traffic to a minimum. We're going to add in some nice flat straight roads, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. And then we will just simply use our create curve mode to make a nice gentle curve right there. And then I'll make a nice connection right here. Now, interestingly, as we look at this, I see another water issue. I might try to resolve this as we're working on this. And it's always foolish to try to play with water, but you got to do what you got to do. I'm going to take this to be a fairly low capacity, drop it right here, and then adjust it to be at the top-ish of the river banks. That should do the trick for us. And then we'll just have to see. Now, we can't leave this road as it is. The main reason is it's just going to be a gigantic cul-de-sac, and it's going to feed everything onto the highway if we want to get back to the city. So I feel like we need to create some sort of connection to our existing community. And the way that we're going to do that is to eliminate this road, and we're just going to create a connection across the highway. So I want this to be as low as possible. So I'm going to try to stop a truck underneath the highway. Then I'll grab the other end and control H that over to here. And there is a light in between, and I could not get finicky about this, but I'm going to try to fix it. I'll just add a node, and that split the lights. Now we just need to make a connection right here, and I'm going to make a compound curve using our create connection mode, and that will give me the ability to adjust this in two areas. And truthfully, for me, it's less about being able to adjust in two areas so much as it is about being able to really figure out where that bend is occurring. Now we've got this loop de loop, just double click the center and that goes away, hit enter, and we've got the perfect road. Let's ground level this, and then we'll slope it out. And this is a pretty good base for what we're about to do. I think that it's just tweaking around the edges. I've tried to have as few bridge segments as possible. That would be something that you would look for. And the primary reason for that is they're costly to maintain and build. And if you could bring some dirt in instead, you would absolutely do that instead. So now I have zoning along this road. That was never my intention. This is that 4-lane collector. We're going to use our toggle zoning tool and just eliminate this. And that will direct all of our commercial over to the other roads. And I want to eliminate a bit of this in other places where it doesn't make sense as well. And then the wholly unnecessary thing, we are adding in some young lindens. Now, in this area, I'm going to be very, very basic with this. We're just going to use our parallel road tool. And then I want to parallel this, and we're going to give this some space. So we'll tab this over, hold down shift, and every hit of the plus button is another 10 meters. So it's basically 1 unit. So I want this to be, we'll say 15-ish, we'll go 14 units back so that we have enough separation in between the highway and this road. Hit enter and call it a day there. And then we'll just make a couple of connections. Now, the reason why I've made this so big is reasonably in industrial parks, they often will have extra large lots to account for future growth and development of some of these businesses. But you might wonder, would you actually see this much built at once? The answer is probably not, but there's a caveat there. You might see some. Oftentimes in industrial parks, there will be shovel-ready sites so that a business could come in, decide to relocate to the park, and hit the ground running. So all the utilities are in place. The roads are sometimes in place. And in some cases, buildings will even be put up. Buildings, shells of buildings. I think maybe it's less far off than you might imagine. And we are going to make this a zoned industrial site, but I've said that I'm never using the zoned industrial again. And by golly, I'm a man of my word. We're never using the general game zoned industrial. In fact, I wish there was a toggle just to get rid of it. Because if you have the Industrial Evolution Content Creator Pack, there's just no reason to use the old school zoned industrial anymore. And knowing that this is what we're going to be using, we need to have a full spectrum of city services in here. And the reason I say that is these buildings will not level appropriately. You'll just have your old school 1800s brick looking buildings. You'll never get to your higher level, new modern industrial park buildings unless you really add a whole bunch of amenities to the area, which truthfully, it makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of these new industrial sites do have a number of amenities, so we will add those. And you might have noticed a mistake that I made. I forgot to turn my zoning back on, so none of these roads actually have it, so we'll get that fixed. And you guys know me, I can't help myself. I had to improve the slopes a little bit. Now that we have this through here, I'm going to place a few amenities before we zone this. And we're going right into our tourism menu again. I think it would make a ton of sense to have a pond back here. So a stormwater pond of some sort. So we'll add at least one of those. Maybe we'll even go with something a little bit fancier. This will be the amenity that the developer uses to sell the park to prospective first and last mile distributors and things of that nature. Your employees can keep healthy and lower your health insurance costs. This is how we do it. You can walk through the pond, walk around the pond, not through the pond. Not a great way to spend your workday. And then we'll add in a couple of restaurants so that the employees of these places could go and grab a bite to eat for lunch. We're also going to need some of our city services. So we will add right in the center of this area. I'm going to add healthcare, fire, police, and for good measure, we'll even add death care. And this should develop fairly quickly. So the moment I start zoning this, I expect it to fill in very rapidly. And we are going to need to add power to this area. That's kind of one of our blind spots right now, is we don't have power. We've already got a distribution line across the highway. We'll just connect in. So this is going to fill in over time. And I think it's the perfect time to switch gears and build this interchange. The reason why I'm so interested in this interchange has nothing to do with growing the city and more to do with just leaving it in a complete state. Also fixing our beach, because these are all related. These are all related issues. This is a gigantic cul-de-sac. It would never be legal. You'd expect this to connect into something. So we're going to find that connection. So we'll eliminate that, and I'm going to grab our dirt road. And this is going to be a relatively challenging spot to work with. We're going to find our crossing. And I want to leave enough space on either side of this crossing right here so that we're able to have a road going underneath. So we'll go 640 on either side. And basically this will allow us the opportunity to create this road on the side and go underneath the bridge. Now, this is a really challenging connection to make. It's obviously possible with road guidelines. If we spread this out, we can make it pretty easy on ourselves, but we really don't have a ton of space. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to parallel road tool this again. And then just bump this a little ways away and try to make sure that we're not hitting the pillar. So 20 meters apparently does the trick. Do the exact same thing on this side. And now that we have this, it's fairly simple to keep it going. We'll turn angle on only, and we can pull this out as far as we need to. So we've got those established there. And you might think that I'm making a fairly simple interchange, and it's actually going to be kind of complicated. So I'm going to straighten these out so they look nice. This is one of the things I'm really excited about. We're not going to have to do that. At least as it appears, we're not going to have to do that in City Skylines 2. And I'm here for it. This whole interchange madness. I see in my head what this should be, and I've got to use a ton of mods to get there. And I love the mods. I love the modders, but I will tell you, I would skip this if I could. So we're making our connection right there. And then I want to gentle this up. So we're just going to use our arrange at line mode, grab this node here and grab this one. This is not going to be at grade. That is not part of the game plan. We're actually likely going to need to raise this up here and then lower this down here. And then we'll continue our bridge. And you might be wondering why I'm using all the dirt roads. If you are newer to the channel, that might be a question you have. I do this because with the dirt roads, you get guidelines. So it helps you create these lovely connections using your guidelines. Without that, it's really difficult to make nice highway interchanges. So it's not necessarily that you have to use the dirt roads. You can really use any roads that aren't highways, but you have to use a road that provides guidelines. So that is a nice connection across. Now we just need to worry about actually getting from this road onto the highway. And this is going to be fairly simple because we have anarchy. What we'll do is grab our dirt road, ground level it, and I'm going to take this up, we'll say 160. And then I'm going to go and make a gentle curve right here. And then we'll just have a nice, easy connection in there. And now here's where the magic is. We're going to use our curved road tool, and I'm selecting this, and I'm just going to pull it in until it looks good to me. And then we'll get rid of these. Perfect interchange every single time. Node controller can obviously improve some things, give you some nicer connections. Wiggling around with move it will improve that. And obviously we need a longer queue distance here. We will add on to this bridge to make that happen. And truthfully, this probably didn't need to be this long. It's just for the sake of visual continuity, we'll do that. But I think we're in a pretty good spot. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. And now we've got a challenge for ourselves because we need to be able to get across the train track. And we really don't want a junction here. That could cause backups onto our highway and really disrupt our rail connectivity as well. So what we'll try to do is add a longer ramp back here so that we can keep this flatter near the highway. And now we'll turn our contours on, and what we can see is that we are actually elevating right over here. So that is half of our issue. I'm going to Control H this down to highway level, and you can immediately see that a bridge is likely viable now. So the reason why we had this admittedly long ramp is simply to give ourselves the ability to come low enough over here to get underneath this rail connection. And that's the kind of compromise you need to make if you're going to respect the way that rail networks actually work. I'm adding a couple of nodes right here and removing the one in the center so I can upgrade this and have a nice, simple bridge span. And then I just want to look at this with a car underneath to make sure that we're good. We are not. So we will raise this up and try to get cute with this. And obviously with rail, I would love to keep this under 2% if at all possible. So hopefully we can still make it underneath. Yeah, I think we're good now. So we can get this upgraded, and wow, look at all of the traffic pandemonium. So that should have our ramps in a good place. I was worried that we'd potentially see backups onto this bridge. If that were to ever become a problem, that would be a solution that we could have, is upgrade this to a 4-lane highway so that we can merge in sooner. But I think everything's actually going to be okay. So we'll just leave it. And I'm going to upgrade this road right here. We've had this urban road. Doesn't make a ton of sense. So we're going to upgrade this to a highway, get traffic moving around here. And then on the other side, we are going to stop. So basically we'll go to here with our highway, bridge over the top, and then we will switch this up to just the 2-lane highway. And then I just softened the terrain a little bit around here, fixed some of the weird node issues that we had like with this. And I think things are looking and functioning very, very well. Let's get this upgraded all the way to our other highway. And I'm hoping that this will resolve some of the madness we have over here. On this road, I'm going to upgrade this to be a normal road and add some of our vanilla parking. And then I will once again create a highway. And we could add a ring road all the way around here. I did think about that. Oh, shoot. Needs power. That's unfortunate. What I am going to do instead is just create some sort of loop. In fact, I really like the loop I have over here. So I'll just copy it and just paste it over here. And hopefully all the looping craziness with the cars stops then. And I will add a power line over here, even though I'm really reluctant to do so. And there we go. And funny enough, we're seeing our garbage issues still be a thing. So I think I will add one more waste processing complex over in this general area. Excellent highway access, plenty of space for it over here. And hopefully that helps resolve some of these issues. We'll also need a waste transfer facility if we actually want to be able to pick up garbage in this area. And I think just to make sure we're not adding a bunch of pressure onto this collector right here, I'm going to use Move It to spin this around and place this on this local road that I added right here. Perfect. That should help us out quite a bit. That garbage issue's just been a real bear. So with that, I am going to let this run for just a minute. I want to see if our traffic issue resolves. Otherwise, I'm going to add a looping road around here. You know, and I was letting this go for just a moment, but then I realized we are about to cross our milestone. So I do think that we're just going to do what I think will resolve the issue, which is create a ring road around here. So the issue right now is that we're allowing vehicles to make a ton of movements across there, which is not what we wanted to do. We will prevent that. We'll make a nice scenic road over here. And as I finish this up, we cross the finish line. We've reached 112,000 in population. We have restored the balance of the universe. Everything is as it should be. And I'm not going to lie, it feels pretty darn good. So I think we've got a couple more things we have to do to leave this build in a good place. I am reconsidering this, and I think we're just going to add a ton of capacity here. And hopefully that resolves our issues. Sometimes you just need more capacity. This might be one of those times. And now that we've increased the capacity all over, our traffic flows back up to 80%. This is weird looping traffic. It's almost as bad as dummy traffic, but we're going to just have to deal with it if we want to keep the beaches in the build. And though we've reached our population threshold and we've fixed this area over here, there's one more thing I want to do in the build. We've got to fix our lumpies and our bumpies. And these last two things I want to do in the build really aren't necessary. They just make me feel better about the build and leaving it in the state that we're leaving it in. This one is pretty basic. I just want to get rid of this bump here, 9%. That was never the intention. Now that looks much, much, much better. And then the other thing I want to do is add the key walls here. So the way that we're going to accomplish this is we're just going to select our basic key. So I think we're going to use our city key, and then I'm going to try to use the parallel road tool to make this as quick as possible. So we will grab onto here, and what I think we'll try to do is maybe go 60 meters out. That seems to make a pretty decent distance here. We could add on to our city if we wanted to at this distance, and potentially have a row of factories along the key wall. And we'll bring that to about here and end it. The reason why is I don't really want to follow the road over here. So now we'll just find another location that we're comfortable with. And again, bump this out to our ideal width. And I'm going to parallel road tool this, tab this over, and then switch sides. And then I'll again bring this over here. And now let's find the rest of our straight segments. I think that there's maybe one right here. Now, before I do anything over here, these have been issues since the start of the build today. I'm going to get rid of these roads that are dropping buildings into the ground. And then over here, we've got some lumpy, bumpy craziness going on. So we're just going to set our heights to try to balance this out. And that could have been a 1.2% grade, but I decided to go crazy and let it dip down like that. So this is much better. And now that we have this resolved, it should be fairly simple to simply add a nice key here that's very flat and nice. Now we've just got a couple more spots over here, and these should be fairly straightforward because I just want to wrap all the way around here with a nice key wall. And then I'm paralleling this over to the other side. We're probably going to do that in one more spot at least. Okay, so we've made some good progress with our keys, but we've got a lot of places that need to be connected, roads that are in a bad place. And what we're going to do is use our create connection mode to fix all of these. And I like this one because it gives me 2 points to adjust. For instance, that's perfect right there. And then you see this one, and we actually need both of these points. We're going to need them. I think for the most part, we're in a good place. I'm going to resume this. It's going to probably cause a couple of issues, and we've obviously got some height adjustment things that we need to work on, but we are in a pretty decent place. I'm finishing off with key walls that don't have the walking paths. And the nice thing is these actually work really well together. Just kind of ends the path. And I'll drop that down to the water, Control H this one to the same place. And now we just slope things out. So there are two ways that you can handle road issues with the key walls. I think for the most part, I'm just going to try to drop the key down and then we'll slope from those points. And then you might have other things like this. This is a prime example of the road being inverted or the key being inverted. So we just go into our invert segment mode and network multi-tool, click on this, and it will absolutely resolve itself quickly. All right, I took quite a long break. to make adjustments around the quay wall in the river. And I'm going to tell you what, this was worth it. This probably took me about 45 minutes, but it was just fine grain adjustments, adding pads like this to give some activity to this wall, then making sure that each and every bridge allowed for passage above it, some landscaping all the way around, and I just really started to have a lot of fun with it. The quay walls are great, and I think that you guys were spot on. This was absolutely needed in the river, but we did have to get that river up, because if it wouldn't have been this high, it would have looked strange. And truthfully, I'd probably even like it to be a little bit higher, but I'm not wanting to flood this entire area out. All the quay walls are at different heights, and the really marvelous thing is you can't really tell. So I'm really pleased with how it turned out. The other thing that I did is, as I was coming through here, I noticed that this highway had a really steep grade going up, and that just wouldn't happen. So we carved in to the hillside here. I leveled this, and the net result, I think, is pretty outstanding. So I think that this is basically where we wanted to be in Lake Valley. And I'm really pleased with the way that this has turned out. And there's really one more thing that I want to do. Let's take inventory of what we've done and have a brief city tour. Boy, oh boy, that was a fun little trip down memory lane. And on that note, this city has really brought me back to where I was when I was building it. It's right after I had my first daughter, and I built this city when I was feeding her. And in the evenings when she was falling asleep on me, I would sit by my laptop. It was a little Dell Inspiron, and I'd hold on to her and play the game. And it was brand new at that point, so it was really, really exciting. And it still is. All that time later, I've been able to play with her, which has been an absolute blast, and even show her this city and explain what I was doing at that time. So it's been a real pleasure for me to come back here and improve this with your feedback and your help, and I've really appreciated that. It seems that the response has been good. So if you did enjoy this, please let me know. Like I said, in the comments, I'd like to know if you'd like to see another one of these cities. If you want to, I could give you a couple of different options. Maybe pick the one that is the most fun to work on based upon your feedback. All that said, before we leave, we got to take a look at the core statistics of the city, such as the population. We're at about 119,000, which is fantastic. Our budget, I've been watching it. It's been oscillating up and down, so I'm not overly concerned about that. But I want to take a look at our traffic, 82%. That is beautiful. And our transit utilization, looking good there. Little under 9,000 trips per week between residents and tourists. What more could you ask for? That's pretty good. So this city is wildly successful in my opinion. I think it's looking a ton better, and I want you to have the opportunity to take a look at it and prove it on your own, or just check it out. So I'm going to leave this on the Steam Workshop, and if you want to take a look, there's a link in the video description. And with that, I really hope that you've enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you for the privilege of your time throughout this entire series. I know this is many hours. There's many things that you could be doing, but you decided to hang out with me, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for joining me today. Take care. Bye-bye.